Gauteng is hosting an investment conference aimed at attracting more local and international investors to the province. The event forms part of the provincial government's broader strategy to boost economic growth, create jobs and position Gauteng as a leading investment destination in the country. Gauteng Finance and Economic Development MEC Lebogang Maile now joins us for more on this one. MEC, thank you so much for the time this morning. Really appreciate it. When you had that launch a few days ago, then one of the issues that we've faced when it comes to the headlines, when it comes to Gauteng is, and I quote one of them here saying, collapsing in front of our eyes. And one might feel like maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's the fear that we have because we're seeing the infrastructure dilapidation. We're seeing the weaknesses when it comes to infrastructure and crime, etc. We're seeing what's happening out of Ekurhuleni, and I could go on. How are you reassuring investors that Gauteng really is the place to put your capital?
Good morning, Arabile. Thanks for having us. And good morning to the viewers at home as well. I think we have lots of challenges as a country and not just as Gauteng. We've always had a lot of challenges, and I think the issue is how we deal with these challenges and whether we've got the will and the capacity to deal with them. Not so long ago, we had a big problem of load shedding. You will know that during that period, people were saying, were echoing same sentiments. And I think we have demonstrated that we've got the capacity and the will to deal with it. We are facing water challenges now, which I think will be better explained as well by the experts because they are as a result of a combination of factors, which includes both objective and subjective factors. But you would have seen that there is a concerted effort on the part of government at all levels to attend to that situation. We hosted G20 last year. There were a lot of people who doubted our capacity to host a successful G20. We succeeded. When we hosted the 2010 World Cup, there were a lot of people who were doubting and all that. So there will always be concern about our capacity to respond to such situations. And I think we've proved many times that we are able to overcome the challenges that we face. We are not perfect, but I think we've got the will, got the commitment.
MEC, just to interrupt over there, sorry. The will and the capacity maybe are one thing. To host a one-time event is perhaps one thing, but the daily lived experiences of people are another. And that might be the key issue at play here, is that every day people worry and have to look at potholes, look at the sprawling decay when it comes to housing, etc., insufficient housing, insufficient jobs. All of those factors are just some that are plaguing the province as well. It's clear to say that their concerns are not unjustified.
Of course, I mean, Gauteng is it's a province that attracts at least 230,000 people every year. In 1994, there were 7 million people in Gauteng. There's about 16 million now. And once people come to the province on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly, yearly, that increases a burden on our resources and all that. So you have to look at it in context and not be simplistic and assume that it's just because of failure on the part of government. So that's why I'm saying we've got challenges. We are attending to those challenges. And I was just giving an example about not just events, even load shedding, which is not an event. And by the way, when you host an event, you don't just prepare on that day only. It takes years to prepare for World Cup, for instance. You have to build stadiums, you have to build roads and all that. I was just giving an example. And that's why I said, without denying that there are challenges. And to be in denial, I think, will be disastrous, because we have to firstly admit that there is a challenge, and then we should be able to understand the nature of that challenge and act accordingly. And that's the point I'm raising. And that's why I gave you an example about the work that is being done, Minister of Water Sanitation, the mayors, the premier in Gauteng, meeting weekly and working with different agencies that are doing that. Then there is work that is being done to attend to those. And I think, as I've said, we are also putting resources, and in fact, the president has dealt with that in the State of the Nation as well, in terms of resources that are allocated. So what we'll say to the investors is that we are working very hard. And in fact, a lot of them are seeing that, and sometimes we assume that investors are just foreign companies. You also have local people who are investing. 53% of the people who invested or who pledged last year are locals. So they are with us and they can see the work that we're doing.
Okay. My only concern, I suppose, would be that load shedding took the better part of 10 years to get to where we are right now. The people coming to the province that you made note of are something we can ultimately plan for, because we've seen historic data. You've got the data yourself. So maybe it's poorer planning, maybe, that we didn't have in place here as well. It's very difficult to have all those things and not think that maybe we could have done this a lot better from the start, and the people responsible for that would certainly have been government.
Well, people come here because they believe that the province is doing well. And I'm saying the province, not government, in terms of the economy, in terms of opportunities. So the more you do well as a province, the more you will attract people. So we will, of course, endeavor to plan, and that's why we work with institutions like States SA and get to understand what are the trends and all that. So, and work with municipalities as well. But you are not going to stop people from coming into the province and into the country because they believe that there are better opportunities here. You just need to work very hard and ensure that the economy grows at least at a faster pace than the population, which has not been the case in the last few years, unfortunately.
Yeah. How do we restore investor confidence in the integrity of the province's governance systems? I mean, a lot has been highlighted with regards to systemic corruption, particularly out of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, for example.
Well, the Gauteng government has not just spoken against corruption. We have acted. There are instances where those who have been found guilty have been expelled. 1, 2, we have introduced what we call an open tender system, which is the only province in the whole country that is implementing an open tender system, where you've got tenders that are adjudicated publicly, and you've got probity auditors, which are auditing firms. We have spoken last year about piloting, and we've started doing it, a digitized procurement system. So we are not just talking about fighting corruption. We are acting, and we can demonstrate. And I think that's what investors and all citizens want to see.
Yeah, it really is. And the problem is they're all going to want to see what the plan is from that. So what is the messaging when it comes to this investment conference? Is it just that we are open, we're keen for business, we're still a thriving province? Or is it a case of, to develop it and bring it back to its former glory in some ways, we need your help?
Definitely. And that's why one of the things we have to do is to firstly focus on converting the pledges into tangible projects, starting with last year's pledges. by facilitating approvals, structuring blended finance, streamlining regulations, and providing active aftercare as government. That becomes the role we have to play. But we also have to improve intergovernmental promotion by integrating national and provincial investors' needs to experience a coherent and aligned government framework. But we also want to promote sustainable and inclusive investment projects that create employment opportunities and bolster township economies, advance industrial transformation, and incorporate climate resilience into development planning. That's why we don't just accept any pledges. We vet these pledges because we don't just want people to pledge things that are not going to be tangible and that are not going to be converted into real projects. And that's why in the launch, we said that out of the 60 projects that were pledged last year, 17 have already been converted, about 17 billion of the 312 billion. And we are monitoring that, not just monitoring, but working on a daily basis with the private sector to ensure that we help them to achieve their goals.
Sure. All right. Just as a final one, do we have the fiscal muscle to deliver? Or is there a little bit of over-promising here? Let's consider all the needs that are there, and they're almost crises, and they're happening simultaneously. Water, housing, education, corruption, infrastructure decay.
Well, there's always competing priorities in government. So whether there's a crisis now or not, there will always be competing priorities because everything, I dare say, is important. Education is important, roads are important, houses are important. And I think what is important is how you bring about the balance. One, two, how you ensure that there's efficient utilization of your budget. And then three, you ensure that there is impact in the utilization of budgets. And then four, you must ensure that you foster partnership with the private sector and work creatively to cooperate with them in combining resources, because if you do that, you'll be able to achieve greater results. We have seen this with Gauteng, for instance. 20 years ago, we spent about 26 billion. As we speak, end of this March, we're taking over the asset. It will be owned by Gauteng government 100%, and the asset is owned, it's worth 45 billion. So there are projects that we can show which have proven that when we work with the private sector, we can achieve greater results. So there's a whole range of things that we have to do to ensure that we move the needle and we change the lives of people. I think it is possible, and there are areas that we can show where there is a lot of good work that is being done. Unfortunately, the narrative sometimes is like nothing has been done, which is not true. There's a lot that has been done. And I can give you an example in education, I can give you an example even in human settlement and all that.
Look, and I think one has to obviously take all of that in and on, because one has to realize that, yes, some is being done. And I suppose it's the scale of which is impacting day-to-day people in Gauteng that is perhaps of question, where they wonder whether all of that is being done and is visible to all of them. But MEC, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing with that. All the best with the Gauteng Investment Conference, which is still underway, of course. The Gauteng Finance and Economic Development MEC, Lebogang Maile, joining us there to talk about that investment conference. And